Okay, hello, and welcome everybody to our Wednesday night live stream. I am your host. That was really loud. I am your host, Dana Morningstar, and this is a live stream that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you are new here, welcome, and if you are returning here, welcome. I apologize about being a little bit frazzled. I have a class for the next, I don't know, handful of weeks. It's going to be on a Wednesday night. And I get home at like 8:28. So I have 2 minutes to get ready. And I just realized when I started the live stream that I was still wearing my heels, and I'm not going to stand in heels for 3 hours. So yes, that's what I was doing when I went live, was taking off my shoes. And I need to set my timer. Goodness gracious, how is everybody doing tonight? How's everybody's week been going? Anything new and exciting? I just got a strange message on Facebook earlier. Hold on a second here. I'm hoping it's spam, but I don't know. Somebody messaged me and said, "Hey, is this you?" with a link to a video, but I don't want to open it. So I'm like, oh, I don't know if it's, I don't know what it is, but yeah, kind of freaky. James says, "Wait, Dana, you stand for 3 hours?" Yes, I stand when I do the live streams. It sounds really intense, but it's not. You get used to it. I have a standing desk and I absolutely love it and cannot even imagine going back to sitting. Let's see here. Let's scroll up. Hey, Paul is here. Hi, Paul. You have another French friend, well, French-speaking friend, I should say. Kamami is here. Bonsoir to Paul and Kamami. And as Susan asks, I'm sorry, you guys, it is so warm in here, and I've been running, so just bear with me here. Susan asks, Dana, is it normal to feel a bit off and reminisce around an anniversary? Yes, absolutely. It absolutely is. I think most people struggle the most around significant dates, holidays, excuse me, holidays, birthdays, you know, these kinds of, Mother's Day is a really tough time for a lot of people, Christmas, these kinds of things. Hold on a second. Okay, I think I'm good. Sorry, I literally have been running. I had a few handfuls of trail mix for dinner, and crazy day. So Susan, back to what you were saying about, is it normal to feel a little bit off and reminisce around an anniversary? Something that can help with that is to reclaim that day, to assign that day new and empowered meaning for you. So for example, if let's say your birthday or your ex's birthday is a particularly difficult time, then with intention, to plan on doing something to kind of to make this day be significant to you in a positive way. So maybe this is the day that you decide, okay, I'm going to have a girls' day, or we're going to get together for brunch on this day. This is going to be our new thing, or I'm going to treat myself to, I don't know, a spa day, or I'm going to allow myself to sleep in. Ideally something fun and with other people, because it is kind of easy to if you're alone, to kind of backslide into just feeling really down. But at the same time, it's also okay to allow yourself to feel down. So kind of however you want to work with handling those days. Misty says, what about friends who make plans, then cancel on you repeatedly, who also show narcissistic patterns? And I am so guilty of being flaky, especially, well, kind of for a while now. But at the end of the day, problematic behavior is problematic behavior. Even if a person isn't a narcissist, if they're unreliable, Paul can totally vouch for this. We've been going back and forth forever now, trying to work on some stuff together. And I struggle with organization, and I don't know, there's a lot there, but it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay to have deal breakers. So if you've got a friend who is continually flaking out on you, regardless of the reason, if they're terrible with time management like me, or they're disorganized, or they just have a lot going on in their life, or whatever their reason might be, it's okay for that to not be okay with you, and to either distance yourself from them or to cut contact. I have a friend of mine, her best friend, they've been best friends since like high school, junior high. He is hours late all of the time, consistently. And that would make me nuts if I had a friend that was like that. But they have gotten to the point where they, instead of waiting on him, they just tell him, this is where we're going to be. You meet us there. So that way they weren't waiting around for him. And that helped to really solve the issues that they had with him. James says, yeah, that's just disrespectful. It really is. It really, really is. So Misty says, she's super organized and finds time to date multiple men in one night and have 6 kids, but only calls me, I think, when she runs out of supply. Oh, and she's married. Well, Misty, I would really, this is going to sound judgmental. And I really don't mean it to, but when you're running with people that are kind of showing you through their actions that they're doing all kinds of things, they're sleeping around, they're doing all that kind of stuff. I will just tell you from experience, it doesn't tend to end well. And I don't know if I would just encourage you to really think about what you're inviting into your life, because it's probably going to be a matter of time before her husband finds out or one of these guys finds out. And then that's going to be a bunch of chaos and drama on your doorstep. So I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, because that's a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. Yeah. And she says, yeah, it's somebody I've known for many years. I just was so blind. I get it. It's tough, especially if there's good things about your friend. But they're little, and I shouldn't say little because it's not little. When somebody's behavior is showing you that they lie a lot, that's a problem, because odds are they're not being 100% honest with you either. Like, this is just how they are. That's kind of how they get through. And if you're kind of plan D or even E, and she's only calling you when she's bored or wants somebody to hang out with, well, then it's not really much of a friendship. It's more of kind of a, hangout buddy relationship. So it sounds like you either kind of need to adjust your expectations to match the reality of the relationship, or start kind of expanding your social circle and finding some people that you can rely on and who do, have kind of more of a moral center there. Yeah. Survival says, I agree, Dana. Misty, hang with friends who have a similar moral compass. Yeah, I had a friend, this was years ago, who she turned out, she was in a really bad marriage. Her husband was just vile, just absolutely vile. And she had started having an affair on him. And the way she tells me, I didn't know that this was going on. And then she tells me, I'm going to go, I've been kind of seeing this guy, I'm going to go out with him. So basically wanted me to lie to her husband and say that we were together and all this, that. And I told her, I said, you know what? I don't want to get in the middle of this at all. Like, I don't want to be lying to anybody about it. And I said, even if I was okay with doing this, which I'm not, I can barely remember things that actually happen. I will tell you right now, there is no way I can remember lies, especially lies that you've come up with. Like, there's no way. It's no, don't do that. Awful. I don't know. It's not worth it. You don't want that stuff in your life. Yeah, Misty says, yeah, she told me she has no trouble lying. And she told every man she has had is dedicated to a specific purpose. She doesn't feel guilt. Yeah, just making sure. Oh, that's delightful. Then last time you hung out, she got drunk and left you alone at a bar with people that you'd never met. Yeah, that's not a friend. That's not a friend at all. That's somebody who's just looking to hang out and kill time is what it sounds like to me. And then Wonder Woman had mentioned that she has a friend that only calls her when she's driving and bored. Yeah, I've had a few of those as well. And, once you kind of see what's going on, you're like, well, wait a minute. They only call me when they're stuck in traffic or when they've got nothing better to do. And if I need help, whatever it might be, or if I just want to talk, they're never there. It's very one-sided. And once your eyes start let me take this necklace off. Once you start waking up to this stuff, it's much easier to just distance yourself from it because you realize that there's just really nothing there for you. It's not nourishing, It's a kind of a one-way thing. Okay. Let's see here. Let me scroll. Oh, I love that, Dandelion, who says, my ex gave me a song that I liked. I didn't want to get rid of it. So I played it over and over in this beautiful setting to create a new association with it. Yep. I love that. It's so powerful. Such a powerful way to handle things. Survival says, Dana, my 6-year discard anniversary is this month. I am in a terrible rut. My chronic health issues and chronic pain is out of control. I cannot escape. I'm only living on SSDI, so I am destitute. Have you tried calling a local domestic violence shelter? Oh, you are already out. You're 6 years out. Are there any social workers that you might be connected with through your SSDI that could help with something like this? No, you're still in. It's your 6-year discard anniversary this month. You said you're in a terrible rut, but you cannot escape because you're only... Okay, so I guess I'm confused. Are you in or are you out? I guess either way, I would see if there's some sort of social worker or a case manager who can help you to kind of formulate the next few steps with something like that. But you're not alone. And and in all of the different ways, there's a lot of people out there that are really struggling with not only finances and feeling and actually being stuck and, being disabled and having chronic pain and all of these things. So I don't know if you're in any support groups for narcissistic abuse, but if not, you might want to consider looking into a few, because it can help to, I think, just talk to other people that are in similar situations and, kind of vent and get support and hopefully get some ideas too. Oh, I'm not going to say this name correctly. I can tell. Ashlid says hello from Norway. Oh, that's probably not even close. I am so sorry. But welcome. Welcome all the way from Norway. Vaughn says, I think my family is dysfunctional. Well, there's a solid chance that is the case. I think dysfunctional families is a lot more common than we all kind of realize. Some common themes, I should say, some common themes with a dysfunctional family. And before I get into that, let me just say, it really only takes one of these different themes to really cause dysfunction, to cause things to go off balance. So I guess let me back up a little bit more, and even let's define the word dysfunctional, because this is one of those terms like codependency, like love, like forgiveness, like so many of these other words associated with this that get thrown around a lot and nobody really knows what they mean. So here's how I define dysfunction, okay? Because it might be kind of debatable. In my opinion, there's kind of, if you were to divide it into a functional family or a functional person and a dysfunctional family or a dysfunctional person, functioning family is one that there's open, honest, sincere, solution-oriented communication. There's a level of respect and dignity for all of the members. There's each member is encouraged and supported and given their own kind of autonomy. So in a dysfunctional family, that's what makes it functional, is each member is their own kind of they are their own fully functioning person in an age appropriate way, of course, within the family. So dysfunctional families, it's the opposite. Instead of a lot of the messages are basically, instead of being open with your feelings, nobody wants to hear how you feel. So don't talk about your feelings, don't complain, don't tell the truth, don't talk to other people outside of the family about what's going on. There's a lot of secrecy, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of imbalance going on, there's a lot of blurred or non-existent boundaries that are going on, where you've got, generally, you might have a parent or a sibling who is very overly caretaking to the point where they enable other members to, especially younger ones, to not grow up. So you have that extreme. Or you have a really controlling person in your family that everything, they are kind of the matriarch or the patriarch. Their word is law in the family. Or you have children, you have parents who have these kind of unrealized hopes and dreams, and that they're pushing those on the children. Oh, well, you know what? I always wanted to be an interior designer, but I never got a chance because I got pregnant at 17. And so you should go to interior design school, that kind of thing. Whatever, there's not that level of autonomy. It's not about your wants and needs and feelings. All of that's not respected. It's generally in a dysfunctional family, it's an inconvenience. And it's something that many members tend to try to snuff out. So everybody just kind of has their role and they play their part. And everybody just does this real crazy dysfunctional dance around each. It's like a circus. Everybody knows their role. It's just wild. And it's generally not until much later. I would even say really tell people probably hit close to 30, 35, 40 maybe. And then they start realizing that they're profoundly unhappy. And maybe that comes after the loss of, maybe they kind of wake up one day and they realize they hate their job, or that they don't know their children, or that they want a divorce. They don't like their spouse, that they have nothing in common with their spouse, these kinds of things. Then they tend to start doing some soul searching. And then because the challenge for all of us is, regardless, I think very few people, unless there's real significant, prominent, like physical or sexual abuse going on at home, we all tend to kind of grow up thinking like, oh, well, I didn't have it that bad. So-and-so down the street, they had it a lot worse. And it's easy to kind of minimize and normalize. George Carlin, the comedian, used to say, we are our own baseline for normal. Everybody that drives faster than us is a maniac, and everybody that drives slower than us, is a Sunday driver. And it's the same thing across the board. So because we're so used to it, because we are our own level of normal, it can be very difficult for us to see when something's out of balance. Normally, this kind of stuff can come to our attention if we're hanging out with other people and their families, and we're seeing them interact. And there's probably going to be certain things that we pick up on and just think, oh boy, I'm really glad my family's not like that. Or there's going to be other things that are like, oh man, that's so cool. I really wish I had that. And then we start to kind of question what's normal and what's healthy. That's the game changers, when we start asking what's healthy. Yep. Daniel Ray says, seeking being functional in a non-functional system is a matter of stopping your interactions with one behavior, then stopping interaction with another behavior. Yes. And I would add, and then starting a different type of behavior. So it's kind of realizing, oh my gosh, this is the dance that we do. Every birthday, dad gets drunk, and mom gets mad, and my brother's always late, and then I get upset, and then I start screaming or crying, and then I have a miserable time. And that's happened every year for the past 40 years. Kind of realizing, oh my gosh, no, why am I shocked by this? Like, this is what happens every single year. And realizing, okay, they're not going to change. Should they change? Yeah, it'd be great, but they're not motivated to. So then that puts the burden on me. So now what am I going to do? What am I going to do in order to have something different happen? Okay, well, I could either not go over there for that birthday party. I could go over there till it stops being fun, basically. As soon as I start realizing, hey, dad's getting drunk and belligerent, I'm out. I'm just gonna, there's no judgment, there's no anger. That kind of takes time, just truly meeting people where they are and just realizing, I love you guys, but I gotta go. And then leaving and realizing this is your limit for that kind of stuff, because it's just too draining. Gareth says, has anyone bought the most recent Pete Walker book? I ordered it. It's about his journey with C-PTSD. Is it this book, Jared? Is it this one? Or is there another one? Because if it's this one, this is our book club book for this month. This is the Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. But this is not, oh man, it's so warm in here. This book is not new. This book has been out for at least a couple years. But this book is also fantastic. Okay, Gareth is saying no, there's a new book. Well, that's exciting, and we'll have to add it to the list for 2020. Oh my gosh. Let's see here. Gigi says, Dana, bam, here's the book. You are on it. Yes, kind of, because he has a new book. That wasn't the book you meant. Let's see. I don't, are you, J.A., are you talking about, I don't know if you're talking about me and my book or somebody else, but if you're talking about my book, the Narcissist Playbook, I just uploaded the print version of it today to Amazon. So it should go live, I would think, within the next 24 hours or so for the print version, which is very exciting. And then I need to get it reformatted again so it can go out to other retail stores. So that'll happen within the next week. And then the audio book version is, I believe, set to come out like the first week of April. So that's exciting. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's see here. Oh, James says April. Yeah, you're right. I'm in a time warp. No, June. April, May. We're in May. May, June. June, the first week or so of June. Thank you. Okay, let me scroll up here. Jack is talking about finances. And planning for a rainy day. You know, I was talking with Agatha the other day, and she had mentioned that we should really kind of expand our book club selection out to like a wider variety of books. And so one of them was, she's like, you know what, we should really start reading books on kind of financial education, because there's a lot of people out there that are completely overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. So I think we're gonna end up doing that this year. Is working. We're gonna swap out one of the books and put in. I think one of the most basic books that I've read about financial education that I really like. I think it's incredibly helpful because it just keeps everything simple, and it's just a really foolproof system if you can follow it. It's the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover book. I don't agree with some of the stuff he says about, you know, mutual funds and this kind of stuff, but I think the core of his message, his whole approach with, you know, creating an emergency fund, building momentum, figuring out, you know, lining up your debts and working towards getting them paid off and really getting yourself free from that is just, it's gold, because debt really does, it just enslaves people. And, you know, I've got my own, and it's you know, not a good way to live. So stressful. Grace says, I'm out of the abuse, but I'm feeling profoundly disappointed in my life and invisible. I'm fighting it with affirmations and I am statements, but it's not getting much better unless I numb out, but I want to quit numbing out. So what's next? Is Grace, is the disappointment that you're feeling, is it current day disappointment with kind of what's going on now? Or is it like looking back and disappointed about what happened and all of that? I'm going to go ahead and keep talking, so you just correct me and steer me in the right direction here, okay? Is if it's present day disappointment, like you're looking around, you're like, you know what? My life is just not where I thought I would be at this age, and I've gone through so much, and there's just kind of this overwhelm and sadness about that, then affirmations, all of that stuff can be incredibly helpful, but really taking action and doing the work of building up a life that you love, getting involved with hobbies, cultivating quality friendships with quality people. I'm a big fan of meetup.com for this reason. It can be a great way to get out there. Most of these people that I have found in meetup groups are either they are out there just because they just get a kick out of meeting new people, or they're also in some sort of transition period in their own life. So, that can really help. If it's unprocessed trauma, like these kinds of things from the past, I've heard amazing things about EMDR and EFT. So that might be something worth looking into. A lot of people have reported pretty significant improvements within just a few sessions. So that might be something to try. Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that, Dora. Dora says, I do a live on Facebook talking about finances during and after divorce. That is very cool. Let's see, what is a good way for you to get in touch with me? My email for I don't know why keeps periodically just going down and I don't get notifications, but then people are like, hey, I tried emailing you and it bounced. There's no reason for it to bounce. I don't know what's going on. Try sending me an email at dana@thriveafterabuse.com. If it bounces, I guess try to contact me on Facebook, or friend me on Facebook, just Dana Morningstar, and then we'll see what we can figure out. Yeah, Wonder Woman says, I followed Susie Orman's advice and lost all my money in my 401k in the 2000s. Here's my take on investing is I don't invest my money into anything that I don't understand and that I can't control. That's it. So I lost a ton with the real estate market as well. I liked real estate because I could, you can drive around, like you can see it, you can see the neighborhoods, you can, all of these things. It was about as safe as a thing as I was interested in doing. I'm not into stocks. I'm not into mutual funds. I'm not into stuff like that because all it takes is one CEO comes out and you find out, oh, this guy's been embezzling funds or this gal's been, whatever, doing the same thing. And then the company, there's major problems. I don't like that. So I don't mess with stuff like that. Kind of for that reason. But I think the core of it, the getting an emergency, again, this is stuff that's not really taught and it should be taught. I'm going to just go out. Can we please stop teaching children about the War of 1812 and replace that day in class with the basics of money management or emotional awareness? It's going to serve them so much more than learning all about the War of 1812 or reading Johnny Tremaine. God, that book is awful. So, or A Farewell to Arms. That's another, come on. But the stuff's not taught. So what happens? People tend to not have a backup plan. And then they're so focused on getting a decent job. And then they start living, and it doesn't even matter. They could be making multiple 6 figures a year, but if they're living paycheck to paycheck, all it takes is a bump in the road and then, you're in a tailspin. Let's see here. Oh, that's exciting. Hooray. Says Dana, I had a breakthrough using EMDR this week. I've been able to stop ruminating on certain flying monkeys and their smear campaigns. Good for you. That is very exciting. Zachary says, I think a lot of people stay with their narcissistic partners because they think it's just emotional immaturity, and they hold on to hope that the partner can change. Yes, I would agree. Again, most people, because not again, I know I just keep saying this, but it's so true. Like, none of this stuff is taught. And if anything, the exact opposite is taught. So people are at a young age, oh, you need to forgive and forget. Oh, you need to be friends with everybody. Oh, you need to be compassionate. They had a bad childhood. Oh, you need to give somebody a second chance. Oh, you're not perfect either. Oh, family's forever. Oh, commitments forever. All of these messages are what we're fed. And, or with love, yeah, I mean, if you can't stop obsessing about the person and you feel like your heart's being ripped out of your chest and you can't live without them and all of this, like, that's love. And more often than not, that's a trauma bond. It's not love. So people are walking around with all of these mixed up messages, and then they're wondering why their life's not working. And then they hit this breaking point where they can't handle it anymore. And they start seeking answers, and then if they're in relationship crisis, they might come across a channel like this one, and then they start really examining things like, oh my gosh, I did not know that. I thought everybody had the capacity to change, and I thought everybody would be interested in changing if I could just get through to them as to how hurtful they were being. And so there's just this whole kind of waking up process about other people and our own kind of what boundaries and standards and deal breakers really look like in motion and what all that means. We had I think it was here at the live streams last week. At the very end of live stream on Wednesday, we had a gal talk about her. She basically had no issues with boundaries before, but now she had gotten in this relationship and they'd been completely eroded, and she was just really overwhelmed and lost. And that can be common for quite a few people because they've never encountered a boundary pusher like a narcissist or a really exploitative person. So her toolkit had worked for her up until this point, until she really encountered this like way problematic person. And then it stopped working. She didn't realize that it stopped working. She didn't realize she was falling into what you're talking about, kind of thinking, oh, this person will change if I can just get through to them. Oh, they can't possibly mean this, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing she knows, her whole world is just imploded, and she doesn't understand how, she's struggling with figuring out how did I get here, Let's see here. Yeah, and Gigi says, yes, I was only aware of the glimpses of emotional immaturity. I just really am a big fan of, it's one thing to talk about it, but people in general need to have it more spelled out for them because of what we were talking about earlier. It's so difficult to see that there's a problem when you're in the thick of it, or if it's been that way your whole life. It's one of those things we kind of look at and we think, oh, I can see the issue in their relationship or whatever. It's difficult when it's our own. Let's see here. Gigi says, Dana, any suggestions for a master's degree program? I am so freaking hot. I'm so sorry, you guys. Any suggestions for a master's degree program to become an advocate with a therapeutic and legal background that is not social work? I guess my goal would be, what do you want to do with the master's degree? Are you wanting to do therapy? Are you wanting to, when you say advocacy, what are you meaning by that? And are you wanting to work for yourself? Are you wanting to work for an agency? Kind of what are you thinking? If you go for, so I'm gonna keep talking. You just steer me in the right direction, okay? For master's programs, if you want to do advocacy in the sense if you want to run a shelter, you want to see clients, you want to do therapy, this kind of thing, there's generally, I would say, 4 tracks you can go on. You can get a master's in social work that has the licensure option. You can do a master's degree in counseling, which would have the licensure option. You can do a, generally to be a psychologist, it just kind of, excuse me, it just kind of jumps to PhD. So you could do that. You could also go the route of either becoming a nurse practitioner, psychiatric nurse practitioner, or a psychiatrist. Am I missing anything? Psychologist, licensed practical counselor, and social worker. Those are the main ones. Most, if you're wanting to run a shelter, those kinds of things, social work really kind of opens up more doors. I will say that. But it all just depends on your goals. Oh, good. Okay, Doris says, I just emailed you and messaged you on Facebook. Okay, good deal. I will get back with you tomorrow. Zachary mentions, he says, I think part of the problem is that narcissistic personality disorder isn't researched nearly as much as other disorders like borderline personality disorder. I think you're right about that, to be honest. There's, borderline personality disorder has its, but even still, I think that's one of the biggest challenges with the DSM is it's all still so subjective. Even it's just subjective across the board. So you're walking into somebody's office and it's because they're their own baseline for normal, right? If they haven't done the work to kind of get to a level of healthy or to understand a level of healthy, then they're not really going to be the best determiner of kind of what is problematic behavior. And that's its own challenge because it's a lifelong journey to kind of even cultivate this awareness. And some people never get very far. So it's, it's a challenge. But with borderline personality disorder, at least there's more of a treatment protocol. There's dialectical behavioral therapy, which I just am a big fan of for everybody. I think that's something that should also be taught. We can cut out something else. We're going to start rearranging curriculum here. But yeah, with narcissistic personality disorder, I think it's even same with, I think all cluster B kind of behavior in general, describing it in one way versus being on the receiving end of it, it's totally different. I mean, words can hardly even do it justice. And that's the problem. So with narcissism, it's like, okay, this person's very grandiose. They're very, I don't know, very grandiose, very full of themselves, very arrogant, these kinds of things. It's not just that. It's the result of that. When it's all about them, it can't ever be about anybody else. And that's where the damage comes in, that I don't think is as understood as it really needs to be. And the harm that does to so many children of narcissists who are continually invalidated and neglected emotionally, physically, both, or abused psychologically, emotionally, physically, all of the above. That's interesting, Jack. I don't know why I'd never thought about that before, but it makes total sense. He says, Dana, I was explaining to somebody in the chat that DBT has been very effective in treating C-PTSD. It was literally a game changer for me and my C-PTSD symptoms. That makes total sense. That makes total sense, because the mindfulness, the focus on, working with kind of emotional dysregulation and helping a person to balance that out, identifying different emotions, all of that. Was there something in particular that you found that was more helpful than other? Like what were the game-changing things that you learned in DBT, do you feel? Oh, Alice is saying, what is DPD? DBT. So, what is that? It stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. And it's kind of a mindfulness-based course. A lot of times the therapists will do group courses on it, and it helps people. It's geared specifically towards those who struggle with borderline personality disorder, but it's kind of I would say some of the foundational steps of emotional awareness, which, I think, hey, we could all benefit from that. It might be something, if you guys are curious about it, it might be something to, if you're in therapy or if you have insurance of any kind, to call around and ask and say, hey, I am really interested in, is there any kind of group courses going on for DBT? I'm interested in this. I'm really struggling with kind of emotional volatility. I've experienced abuse, and kind of see what they have to say. Just Me says, I think they tell people that they are BPD to try to get them into treatment when they know full well they are NPD. I don't know if they know full well, to be honest, because I really feel that it's going to sound so terrible, but I think a lot of mental health clinicians, when they think about a narcissist, they think about somebody that's really over the top. Just, we all have these ideas in our head of what somebody looks like. Oh, a bad person looks bad. They're in a black trench coat with a black mustache that they twirl, right? And bad people don't just look like that. Like sometimes they can be little old ladies, or sometimes they can be children. Sometimes they can be really handsome. I think people, when they think about, same thing with sociopaths. They're really, they live on the fringes of society. They're unfriendly. They're kind of a lone wolf. They walk around with just an axe to grind. That they got a chip on their shoulder kind of thing. A lot of them don't come across like that at all. In fact, I don't think I've ever come across one that's acted like that. And I've worked with a lot when I was a psychiatric nurse. People that had done stuff that would make your toes curl, and you would have never guessed it. With narcissists, they generally don't come across as, frankly, what you see on YouTube. Like, I don't know what that is. Like, that's a bunch of nonsense. That's not how it is in real life. That's kind of people acting the part, frankly. It's the narcissists that I have known in real life, and I don't even know if I've ever even really worked with anybody that was officially diagnosed with that. But the people that, like I said, the people that I've known have been insufferable. But it's difficult to see if you're only a clinician, you're only there for, an hour at a time, 50 minutes with a time with the person, and then they're trying to schmooze you. So, okay, let's see. I had to watch a movie the other day for a class I was in about, was that crisis and trauma class I was telling you guys about. And the movie was Girl Interrupted. And I'd seen the movie when it first came out back in, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s. I cannot stand that movie. I didn't like it the first time. I liked it even less the second time. That movie, I find it hard to believe that it's supposed to be a true story. I just find it hard to believe that it actually is a true story because it's so grossly inaccurate about so many things. And what was bothersome too in the movie was that the character Winona Ryder is supposedly diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and she really doesn't have any of the symptoms. So like, I don't know. It just, that kind of stuff is so damaging, and misdiagnosis stuff it happens quite often. I'm not saying that she was necessarily misdiagnosed. I obviously don't know, but based on, what I saw, I didn't see anything, nothing. I saw a really sad, lonely kid that was disconnected from her family. And that was it, not borderline personality disorder. The book that we're reading right now for book club, the Pete Walker C-PTSD book, he talks about this and how common it is for people to get misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And he also mentions the kind of what he's noticed, which is, I second this, that there is that a lot of mental health clinicians will look at kind of volatility in a person's oh, they self-harm. Oh, borderline personality disorder. Oh, they've had suicidal thoughts. Oh, they've had a pattern of kind of a pattern of unstable relationships. They have dated a lot of people. They've had a lot of relationships and these kinds of things. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean they have borderline personality disorder. It could be any number of things. And so Pete Walker was saying that he really feels the true core of borderline personality disorder is narcissism. And I would agree with those that I have seen and worked with that I would say are true borderline personality. That's it. It's narcissism plus all of the emotional roller coaster of borderline personality disorder. And he differentiates with this. He said, then he carves it up within he refers to them as the 4F types, which are like our defenses, our fight, flight, freeze, and fawn defenses. And he was saying a borderline personality disorder, you have your fight. I think the core he was saying is fight. And then the second one is, what was he saying? Flight or fawn? It might have been fawn versus more C-PTSD or more of like the codependent, which again, they're two very different things, but is more of a fawn first type defense. So like a C-PTSD might be fawn first, but then there might be some fight in there because a person's reactive and they've been traumatized, but that's not the same. It's not the same. And I think he's spot on. We'll cover all of this with book club at the last Thursday of this month, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jennifer says, Dana, do you think Winona Ryder's character could have C-PTSD? I never saw the movie, but know of it and its plot. To an extent, possibly. I mean, my take on the movie was that the movie takes place, I want to say like in the 60s, and she is kind of a coming of age story, hence the title, Girl Interrupted. She is graduating from high school and is just really feeling lost and doesn't know what she's doing with her life. And everybody else seems to know what they're doing. People are going to college. They're excited about this. They're dating other people. They're, getting engaged. Some people are going off to Vietnam. Other people have kind of a direction, and she realizes that she does not. And and I forget kind of what her home life was, but she was not connected with at all emotionally with either one of her parents. And I don't remember if they had another child or kind of what the situation was, but she just was kind of the black sheep and just didn't fit in, and had started, she had taken a bunch of pills, and then that's kind of what started it all. But then, I don't know, then there was a scene where she was talking to, again, like none of this made sense. She was talking to this psychiatrist who was a friend of, or a psychologist who was a friend of her father's, which that normally really wouldn't happen, especially if she's suicidal. But whatever, maybe it was different back in the, the late 60s. And she starts describing what sounds like a delusion about how she didn't have any bones in her hand. And I don't even know. It was very strange. And then she ends up going to a psychiatric hospital, which was like apparently a free for all. People there could smoke, and, you could wear your own clothes, and you could wear jewelry, and people were killing themselves there. I mean, it was just ridiculous. So, I don't know. I didn't see it. I just saw a teenage girl who needed to reconnect with her parents. And, that was the first step. My 2 cents. Sam says, that's the word. The movie was ridiculous. Yeah, like seriously, none of it made sense. Let's see, Jack is saying his friends over in the UK have started talking about CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, over and over again. What is NHS? NHS seems a little stuck on it. Cognitive behavior, I mean, there's so many different therapies out there, which, they all kind of have their time and place. I think it just depends. And in each, that's the thing too, is each, thank you, National Health System. Okay. Yeah, each mental health practitioner you see is going to have kind of their own leanings, like their own theories and approaches that they prefer. So sometimes that can be helpful to figure it out. Personally, I like cognitive behavioral therapy because I'm a big fan of reframing. But there's a time and place in healing where that's helpful, which is down the road, like not right away. Because then it kind of runs the risk of invalidation. Oma Look says, Dana, why did you have to watch the movie recently? Is it a good example of anything psychological? We had to watch the movie. We were doing role plays. So this was one of my favorite things about that class, not the movie part. Like I could have done without that. It didn't do anything for me. But we had to pair off. And so we had to watch all of these different movies that revolved around different themes. So one was, and because the class was crisis and trauma. So this movie was about suicide. There was movies about war and gun violence. Bowling for Columbine was one. The Deer Hunter was one. Jackie, the movie Jackie about Jackie Onassis was one. I'm trying to think of what other movies. Another one for suicide was Leaving Las Vegas. And so then in our role play, one person would act in the role of crisis counselor. And then the other person would act in the role of the main character in the movie who was in crisis. So then that way you kind of had an idea of what was going on with this person. So that was why. But like I said, I really take issue with that movie because it's so far removed from, it's not accurate and for borderline personality disorder at all. And if anything, I felt really saddened for Winona Ryder's character because it's kind of about her getting this diagnosis, and her parents are, of course, I mean, my goodness, you hear you have a personality disorder, like that's devastating for anybody to hear. And her mom starts crying, and, you know, and then Winona takes it on, which that's probably the most accurate part of that whole movie is she finds out her diagnosis, and then she's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm crazy then. And then just kind of steers into that diagnosis. And that's really, really common, regardless of the diagnosis. So that's the dangerous part of this. I have yet to hear somebody who's been diagnosed with a personality disorder, at least within the first couple years of that happening, that it's actually improved their behavior or given them added insight. If anything, it tends to be more of used as, hey, I can't help it because I have XYZ. And that's a problem, which is one of the reasons narcissists aren't told that they're narcissists, and antisocial personality disorder people are not told that they have antisocial personality disorder, because it's counter-therapeutic. It harms them more than it does help them. This is why a good mental health clinician is going to address their behavior, and they're not going to assign a label to it, because you assign that label, they're going to wear that like a coat, and they're going to use it. It's just going to hunker them down further into their defenses as to why they can't change and why other people should let them get away with things, basically. So yeah, Sam says, yeah, Leaving Las Vegas. Now that's a strong movie. Yes, that really was. And High Quality Distraction says, yeah, The Deer Hunter scarred me as a child. I agree. The Deer Hunter, I think, is fantastic. I highly would not recommend watching it if you aren't looking to be traumatized, because it's a really disturbing movie, but it's so fantastic as far as accurately portraying the horrors of war and how it's not glamorous at all. Like, it just great movie. Gareth says, I think cats have personality disorders. Yes, I would agree with you completely. Now that's very cool. Zachary says, my roommate has borderline personality disorder. She knows she isn't ready for a real relationship. She's in therapy and doing the work. She is truly an inspiring human being. Yeah. And, you know, I would bet Pete Walker would say that that's more of a traumatized codependent than a true borderline. I don't know. There hasn't been enough real research done on it, I think, to truly differentiate between that. And okay, wait, Jack is saying, they want borderline personality disorder to be understood more as a response to trauma rather than to be stuck with the baggage that personality disorders have. And yes, well, I think the argument could be made that personality disorders all of them are a response to trauma. However, or at least that's kind of how it's thought. There's kind of a nature and nurture component to things. That borderline personality disorder, I think the pushback or the main issue that so many people have with it is that there's so much crossover between C-PTSD or even PTSD and borderline personality disorder. that's kind of where that push is coming from. Like, hey, let's talk about this in terms of more of like unprocessed trauma, but keeping in mind a person can have both. A person can have borderline personality disorder and C-PTSD, and, you know, and diabetes and cancer and, you know, like, and schizophrenia. There's the whole host of things that can be going on with a person all at once. Dahir asks, you previously mentioned that Pete Walker's book is my top 3 books on trauma. What are the other 2? I would say Body Keeps the Score. Fantastic. Fantastic. Trauma. I have read so many books. Let me think. What would be the 3rd one? Possibly The Drama of the Gifted Child by Alice Miller. I would say that probably that would be the 3rd one. Understanding a kind of, or at least an overview of attachment disorders is really helpful. And she kind of gets into that with kind of the invalidation and emotional neglect that can happen as a child for children, and the results of that. Jack was saying, yeah, I wish I could share the Venn diagram of symptoms. It really does explain the overlap between PTSD, C-PTSD, borderline personality really well. The way I've heard it described is, well, I shouldn't even say that. Pete Walker, let's just go there. Pete Walker describes C-PTSD as kind of as a more complicated, it's complex PTSD, as a more complicated form of PTSD because it doesn't tend to stem from just one event. It's a series of events. I forget who had said, they described the difference between PTSD being like a soldier in a war and C-PTSD being like you're a prisoner of war. So it's still all traumatic. But the C-PTSD stuff tends to be more that emotional and psychological abuse, which can really be a lot longer lasting. And just kind of different, I think different startle responses, different triggers, these kinds of things, which for a person with C-PTSD can be really confusing. Also with C-PTSD, there's a loss of, if a person was going through this stuff as a child, it's the loss of a sense of self as a child. And so that kind of tends to be the overlap between C-PTSD and borderline personality disorder. The kind of emotional dysregulation, the lack of a solid sense of self, probably the series of relationships, these kinds of things with borderline personality disorder. My guess would, in large part, come from if you've got kind of this traumatizing family that a person's coming from. You're not gonna develop most likely a real solid sense of who you are, because they're going to be so busy trying to grind that down. So, let's see. Trying to think of some more differences. I would say, so Jennifer asked, what are the differences between C-PTSD and borderline? Both can be very reactive. Borderline personality disorder has more to do, well, you could make the argument for both of them. Attachment and loss So it's more of a fear of abandonment. C-PTSD, kind of depending on when a person develops this, if it's as a child, it could be the exact same thing, kind of this fear of abandonment. So which results in a lot of walking on eggshells, a lot of, ongoing invalidation. Both, I would say, struggle with kind of knowing when a person doesn't have a solid sense of self, everything else is a challenge. So when you're not grounded, and when I say yourself, when you're not grounded in like your wants, your needs, your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions, your different emotions, these kinds of things, then everything is kind of debatable, I guess. And so when a person can't really trust their perception of reality, then it becomes problematic, especially when you get around a problematic person who's really pushing boundaries, who's telling you what's up is down and what's down is up. And there's all of this, the intermittent reinforcement and the trauma bonds. It's the push-pull, the abuse, and then the I love you, and then the abuse, and then the I love you. That kind of stuff is, I think it was Pia Melody. Somebody had actually, because we talked about this before, but it was great to see this in writing from somebody else. It's like, these kinds of relationships are the ones that end in murder suicide. When you have a person that has that volatile personality of borderline personality disorder, and then you get somebody who is abusive and exploitative and narcissist, a sociopath, or what have you, because borderlines are their favorite snack, because they know it doesn't take a lot to just get that. They just feed off that reaction. Because you've got this borderline person, they're crying, they're begging, they're pleading, it's the makeup, breakup, I hate you, I'm keying your car, I love you, let's get married. You've got two different roller coasters going on, and that the narcissistic person is feeling so significant and powerful, like, wow, look at what I can make them do. And that's the kind of stuff that does not end well. Let's see here. Let me scroll up here. Elizabeth says, let's see, I'm struggling keeping, actually, before we get into this, let me just address this comment from Jack. Let me see if I can. Jack was talking to David in the chat. He says, the borderlines I've met in a BPD support chat that discussed DBT skills, like they wanted to heal and to get better, and it sounds like she does not. And this is another really great point, because I think a lot of people, it's the whole thing, hope dies last. And if they have an abusive person in their life that's diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, they're like, oh, this is fantastic. Dialectical behavioral therapy can fix them. They can be fixed. And then they wait and they wait and they wait, and that may or may not happen. So I think it's important to realize this is why I so focus on it's the behavior, it's not the label. Because just because there are treatments for something, it doesn't mean that that person's going to actually want to make any improvement. Personal growth for any of us is really challenging. Like we were talking about before, we are our own baseline for normal. And we're also, all human beings, we are hardwired to do what we think is the right thing to do. This is where mental gymnastics come into play. We all think that we're walking around doing the right. We all think when we have a reason for something, we feel justified in what we're doing. And because of that, it can be very difficult for a person because if you got a reason for it, well, gee, you forgot to buy cat food at the store. That's why I yelled at you. in their mind, they're fully entitled. Yeah, don't buy cat. It's not my fault I yelled at you. You forgot to buy cat food. This is why abusers don't get what they're doing is wrong. And this is why targets of abuse feel like they're to blame, because there's kind of like that kernel of truth to it. But what abusers and their targets don't understand is it's okay for a person to be frustrated and angry, but it's not okay to then lash out at another person. But they don't get that because they still have this very immature thinking of like, not like I wouldn't have yelled had they not done that. But it's like that isolated incident's not the real issue. The issue is much deeper with them. Okay. So, okay. Elizabeth says, I'm struggling keeping balance between healthy behavior, too cold, and then too investing. Any advice? To me, it sounds like you're describing kind of getting your sea legs with healthy boundaries. And when I say healthy boundaries, new boundaries, you're learning a different skill. And this is going to take some trial and error, just like any other skill. If you learn to roller skate, you're going to fall down quite a few times before you really get into the flow of it. And it's the same thing. It's just the same thing with learning to relate to other people. So kind of what you're describing, I think, is very, very common. And I would encourage you to journal about this. And I would actually encourage you to do two things. I would encourage you to start 2 different journals. One of which that's more free form. So if you go on a date, if you, or you're out with a friend, or you're at work, whenever you're finding yourself either withdrawing more than you feel is healthy or oversharing more than you feel is healthy, you're writing about this whole experience in depth. And then, and you're just processing it. Why did I do this? And you might want to just kind of frame it in the context of, who, what, when, where, why, and how. So what really happened and why? Why do you think that you were oversharing or that you were being more distant with this person? And kind of digging deeper into that, because there might be kind of yet another hidden pattern going on there. And then in the other journal, I would encourage you to just make this a success journal. And so in this journal, and it helps to, just basically have a blank, you could do a steno pad, whatever you're comfortable doing, or you could have a really nice journal, success journal. And then you date each entry and you only document your successes with what you're going for. So, and the goal can change. So you might want to document any and all successes, which, hey, go for it. Because journals like this, when you're doing that, when you're documenting any and all successes, no matter how big or small, when you're having these low points and you're feeling like, I'm never going to get this, what's so wrong with me? I'm just so depressed. I'm not moving forward. You can go pick up that journal and just start at page 1, and you can remind yourself of, oh my gosh, this is how far I've come. And these are all of the things that I'm doing right. And it can help to build that momentum up and to build kind of different references underneath you to be like, yeah, you can do this. Like, you are doing this. Here's the proof. It's amazing the stuff that we forget over time, because once you get a skill down, you get it down and then you forget. It's sort of like, again, with roller skating or riding a bike or whatever. It's not until we see somebody else that's just starting out learning how to roller skate. And then or for me, it was driving a stick shift. Like, my first car was a stick shift. And like, that was a whole other, but I was so stressed out. I thought I'd never get it down. And then I did. And then realize, and then seeing somebody else helping them learn how to drive a stick shift, and you're taken back. You're like, oh my gosh, I remember being exactly in their shoes, completely overwhelmed. You're stalling out, you're popping the clutch, your car's jumping, you're afraid it's going to roll or that it's going to smash into the car ahead of you. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't even think about these things now because I have it down. It's the same thing. Same thing. So, let's see. Vampire Slayer says, Dana, please explain the painting behind you. This is my attempt at making a butterfly. This was a painting that I did shortly after the ending of my relationship with Jack. And I was in such a dark place. It was one of the worst times in my whole life. It was just like, oh, it was so, it should be a movie. It was so freaking awful. My ex and I had this rental property. I'll just cover this briefly and then I'll move on. My ex and I had this rental property. I swear to God, that thing was built on an Indian burial ground. I just shoveled money into that thing. And it was just, it literally was the money pit. That house was ridiculous. And Jack and I were in the middle of rehabbing it. I had a tenant that completely destroyed the house. And so we were in the process of remodeling it. The kitchen was torn up. There was no floor. It was in the middle of the mountains. Like it, it was just, I had no furniture. So I'm suddenly, because I just found out like one night, literally all of the deceit and the danger that was Jack, ended up moving into this house. It was so incredible. It was quiet. It was in the middle of nowhere. I had no TV. I had no radio. It was just me and my thoughts and no furniture in this house that was, destroyed, completely torn. It was very overwhelming. And I realized then that I really needed to start fighting for my mindset, and that I was going to sink down into a really dark depression if I didn't. And so I did two things. I painted this, and I am really, not an artist. So I got a canvas from Michael's and, just a bunch of different, little, $1, $2 acrylic paints. And I painted that with my hands. I started painting that with a brush and it just wasn't working. So I just began painting that. And I hung that in the sunroom of this little cursed house that I was living in. So, and then I also I found this also, thankfully, was at a friend's house during the freaking fire. So two of the things that have been with me for, almost 10 years now survived, which is amazing. So this was my Buddha board, and it was a bunch of sayings that I wanted to embrace. And I also had that hanging up in my sunroom. And again, this is just a piece of, foam board that I made with a Sharpie. So, let's see here. Let me scroll up here. Speaking of Vampire Slayer, have you guys seen the movie or the TV show, What We Do in the Shadows? If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's hilarious. It's a comedy about vampires. And it's like a reality show with this, it's hilarious. Hilarious. Oh, well, thank you, Paul. Vampire Slayer says, thanks, love ya. I've been wondering. Yeah, it's so funny because I had no intentions of keeping this. It was something I made one night in a angry frenzy where I got really determined, and I'm like, damn it, I'm not going to let this destroy my life. And that was the result. And so, yeah, it was just kind of funny. I actually had it out by the garbage can when I was going to move to Michigan. And Steve moved out here with me, and he was the one, he's like, no, you should totally take that. I think that's great, blah, blah, blah. And I did. So it's just kind of weird. This painting has been through a lot, and it's cool that it's still around. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll up here. Yeah, Just Me says, in the first days after no contact, I had to do one productive thing a day. A year later, I can now multitask. Yay, you. And that's kind of how it goes. It's these parts of our brain when we're under stress, especially ongoing, just debilitating amounts of stress, that prefrontal cortex of our brain just goes offline. And this is why it feels like we have mashed potatoes for brains, because that part of it's like these different kind of synapses and these thoughts, they're just not firing like we're used to. And it's what happens when we go into that fight or flight mode. That part of our brain is just not really there. It's really greatly diminished. And so I think knowing that, realizing it's important to just be kind to yourself and to give yourself compassion for that, because it's not you. There's no deficit within your character. It's not a willpower thing. It's not you're lazy. It's not that you're stupid. It's your brain. This part of your brain, the logic and critical thinking part of your brain, is just offline, and it will come back. But what helps with that, actually not even helps, what's so vital to having that come back is to restore that level of safety. So because the opposite, okay, so we go into fight or flight then there's a real or a perceived danger. So extreme stress. It's amazing what our brain links up as dangerous. So there's the opposite of that is that level of safety. So feeling safe, secure, calm in as many different ways as you possibly can. Getting a routine can help with this. Some sort of predictability. One of them. Gosh, I am so hot. Sorry, I'm wearing this, like, it was so chilly earlier, and it's like 100 degrees in here, I swear. I might have to open the window here in a second. What was I saying? Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, the sense of control. Having that routine, reestablishing that sense of control goes a long way. Providing structure for your life, even if it's, okay, these are the things I'm going to do. I'm going to wake up and then I'm going to make my bed. And I'm going to make my bed every morning. That's going to be the new goal, is getting some structure going can really help. And then ideally surrounding yourself with people that feel emotionally safe, that you can open up to, that do understand to some degree what you've been through. They're not telling you to get over it or get on with it, or they're not pushing you to do anything. They're just holding space for you, I guess, basically. Yes. And Gigi says, getting into my body with yoga was paramount to regaining self-awareness. Also, asking my estranged spouse to leave the home gave me emotional safety. Those are two really great examples. Huge, huge, life-changing examples. One of the things with yoga that I've experienced and that I've heard from a lot of other people as well, with the mindfulness part, again, this stuff's not taught, and there's people out there, they're like me, that just need stuff really spelled out for them. So yoga was one of those things, because back in the day, 10 years or so ago, I had heard about yoga. I'm like, okay, we'll do this. I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. To me, it was just like a bunch of stretching. And at the time I thought, yeah, well, you know what? I'd much rather go to a kickboxing class, or like just go for a run on the treadmill and just turn on some, I don't know, like really aggressive music and just run it out. I had a very hard time just moving through the different poses. And it wasn't until quite a while later. I mean, I want to say it was probably a couple years later, going to yoga classes on again, off again, that I realized what that really meant to be in your body and to feel each pose, like, holding your body different, being aware of, are you holding tension in a certain area? Is there pain? Is this a stretch? How deep of a stretch is this? Kind of where are you feeling this? How is your balance? How is your breathing? Focusing on your breathing. All of that. It's so weird. It's so weird how we can be in this body and then just not be aware of like certain things that are going on. It's so strange. Yeah, that's a really great point, Karen. She says, yeah, yoga helps to really feel emotions in different poses. Yes. Yes. And Maura says, yes, yoga is good for adrenal fatigue as well. Really? Good for you, Joe. Joe says he does bar yoga Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, Tuesday, Thursday, aerial yoga in the evening. It helps a lot. Yeah, aerial yoga is my jam. I love aerial yoga so much. I've had ongoing back issues forever, and it helps with that. It helps if I have a class that we do a lot of inversions, I'll leave and it almost feels like I'm drunk. It's all this huge endorphin release. I think a lot of it's just blood flow from hanging upside down. It just is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. There's also, now that I'm thinking about it, trauma yoga, which is becoming its own thing. So I want to, at least around here, I want to say that it just can't be a coincidence. The gal that I take, I'll have to ask her, the gal that I take these classes from, she's very big on kind of this educational component behind like the breathing and the muscle groups and mindfulness and all of this. And a lot of what she was describing sounds like that she was very familiar with the book, The Body Keeps the Score, with mindfulness and different parts of your brain going on and offline and all of that. So that might just be a trauma yoga thing. I'm not quite sure. Oh, Malik says, Dana, open a window. Okay, I'm going to. I'll be right back. I hope there's not an alarm. Hold on, I'm coming. That did not help. It's exactly, I think it's like probably 75 degrees, which is not even that warm. It's 75 degrees outside and something plus degrees inside. Wow. Yeah, Truth Seeker says, I'm intrigued by the idea of trauma yoga. I love relaxing poses. I love the concept of, I want to learn more about this, but helping people to kind of become reintegrated with their body to where their body is a safe place for them. Because that's so huge. And I think that's one of the parts that so many people struggle with after PTSD or C-PTSD is it's that disassociation and it's that wanting to flee and just not be present. And there's so many different ways that we can do that. We can lose ourselves in work. We can lose ourselves in TV or, there's a million different ways we can, addictions and compulsions and not being present. Yeah. So Gigi, I missed your answer earlier. Really? Okay. Gigi's saying, I think there's a course offered by Bessel van der Kolk or Pete Walker for trauma yoga. Ding, ding, ding. That is my plan. Is what she says. So is that what you were kind of thinking about doing as far as advocacy goes? What we were talking about earlier with master's programs and all that? Gigi says, yes, the yoga studio needs to be a safe place. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'll be curious to know kind of where you end up with that. So please keep me posted. I would love to be able to do, to create some sort of like retreat center. Maybe it runs year round, maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's an option for alternate, for like longer term housing. I'm not sure what this all looks like, but I think it would be fantastic to have a wide mix of modalities under one roof. Sort of like, I forget what that center is called. It might be the Cancer Center of America or Cancer Treatments of America, where they have multiple modalities available. So if a person's really into acupuncture, if they're more mainstream, they can get a lot of these things done under one roof. I love that concept. And I think that'd be fantastic for trauma. Cause you guys know, when you're completely overwhelmed by all this, you don't know, like you don't know what you need and you don't know the questions to ask. And I think it would just be really helpful for a person to not have to figure all that out and to try to sift and sort through all the information out there. You can just go to one place. You've got all of these different people working together, coming up with a good treatment approach. It would be affordable, ideally covered by insurance, or even something that I don't even know, like St. Jude's, where it's free. It's free for people that need it. There's funds that come in through grants or donations or what have you, that people can get the help they need. Sean is saying it's Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Okay, yeah. Thank you for that. Karen says, I realize that I tend to run, hide, and isolate. When we put up a wall, we block ourselves in and everyone else out. Feeling safe is super important. Yes, and I think having these conversations, because what tends to happen is people, myself included, don't realize these kind of more out of balance ways they go about trying to keep themselves safe. And sometimes years or decades can go by before they realize, oh my gosh, that's what I've been doing and I didn't realize it. And then, it's sad when you kind of realize it didn't have to be that way. So this book really, the Pete Walker book, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, I just absolutely adore this book. I can't recommend it highly enough. We're going to be discussing it in depth. I might even, we'll see how it goes with book club. I might even carve it up into 2 book clubs because there's so much there. But it'll be the last Thursday of this month, which, let me look at my calendar, is May 30th. May 30th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when that is. So, that's very cool. Free from Narcissistic Abuse says, yeah, my sister goes to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America and she loves it. They are multimodality. Yeah, it makes sense, right? Like, why not give a person, like, here is this big buffet of options that you have, and What are you comfortable with? What are you not comfortable? What would you like to learn more about? Right. And then let's work with you through all of this and answer any questions and just provide a safe, awesome place for this to happen. Yeah. And Gigi says, yeah. And most treatments for anything are not affordable or accessible. I agree. And I have a big problem with that. It should not be that way. And if I were to ever create something, it would not be that way, because it bothers, I think if you can leave a lot of the insurance companies out of it, and if you can figure out a way to get like grants and donations and these kinds of things, volunteers, it can happen. I mean, you look at, Patch Adams, he started the Gesundheit Institute, and it's, as far as I know, it's free. It's free for people. And it's a lot of volunteer staff or very low paid staff, because there was a lot of medical professionals that were like, this is ridiculous. Like, it shouldn't cost $25,000 to remove a person's appendix, or it shouldn't have to drive a family into bankruptcy if they have a child who has cancer. Like, this is disgusting. As Americans, we should be ashamed of ourselves, frankly. Our healthcare system it's a problem. It's a big, big problem. We as a country can do so much better. Oh, that's cool. Tammy says, yeah, mine gives vouchers to things like yoga or acupuncture or therapy. Let's see. Oh, Maluk says, I go to Coda meetings, which is the Codependent Anonymous. It's a good group, but I get frustrated. Yes. Just thought I have my own thoughts about why those groups can be frustrating, but what are yours? What is frustrating to you about that? Oh, Maluk. Gigi says, yes, we need preventative and holistic care. Yep. You know what's so cool is we live in the time and age of the internet, and that's just such a game changer, because so much of this stuff, courses, all of this stuff, it just cuts costs by so much, because you don't need a full staff. You don't need insurance authorization. I think that's my prediction. My Nostradamus in me is where things are going to wind up in like the next 10 years is so much of this stuff's just going to move to full out online, and people are going to be able to pay either a flat fee for a month, or it's just going to be free, and they'll be able to get a lot of this information that used to take a long time and it was very expensive. It's just going to be readily available. Gigi says, let's do it, Dana. Well, let's talk, Gigi, honestly. Let's talk. Are you on Facebook? If you're on Facebook, message me, Dana Morningstar. You can find me. Because I know you've done a ton of healing, and you know your stuff, and it would be really great to be able to combine forces in some way. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. I think Sam and Jennifer are talking about Game of Thrones. So let's see here. Let me scroll up. And if that is the case, one of my admins, Arthur, is also a huge Game of thrones fan, and we sit there, we message each other through every single episode. And I told him I've been so upset really since probably season 6. Like, there were major cracks shown in season 6, and now everything's on fire. Like, it's just a total mess. But I said, I'm going to send you a picture of my disappointed face on Sunday. Oh, it's so disappointing. I was so bummed about the Night King. Like, how do you get rid of him? And it just makes, they've been building it up for like 8 years saying, oh, it's the long night, winter's coming. And like, what? It was a dusting. It was a dusting of snow. Everybody was in bed by 10:30. Like, it wasn't a long night at all. It was a Wednesday night. I mean, it was completely uneventful. So frustrating. Gigi says, y'all are crazy with that Game of Thrones nonsense. I've heard it's upsetting for fans. Yes, I was so close to rioting. If you guys hear of a woman gets thrown in jail over her anger over Game of Thrones, you'll know it's me. Oh gosh. Yeah, I agree. Jennifer said, well, I don't agree with it. She says, I liked every season so far. They just needed more time with this. They should have ended season 8 with the Night King and then had Cersei for season 9. I agree. They should have ended with the Night King, not like he was death himself. And then and they have Cersei. It's the writing. Honestly, I don't think it would have helped. Once they ran out of source material, it just all was just nosedive. Yeah. Okay. So Omaluk is saying, yeah, that was one of my frustrations there. She says one of the we'll get back on track. Enough Game of Thrones. He says the Coda, it's frustrating because of the no cross-talk rule. And she says, I like sharing to be interactive, but you're not allowed to refer to any literature except for AA or the Coda approved stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And Gigi says, I find the approved literature for 12-step programs to be problematic as well. And Zachary says, yes, my experience with Al-Anon personally was not good. I think one of the challenges with Coda stuff is I think there's a real need for I get where they're coming from. I get why they have that no crosstalk rule because one of the things I think with so many people that struggle with codependency is we're used to playing the helper or fixer role. And so it's a lot easier for us to focus on the issues of other people than on our own stuff. And that's part of it. And then it can kind of move, that can become problematic in its own right. I get where they're coming from, but I think one of the challenges when a person's trying to rediscover who they are and find their core self is they need that validation. And I just really feel like it needs to just be spelled out a lot more. And plus a lot of the 12 steps, the way that they're phrased with Coda stuff, it can feel very confusing and very shaming that we are basically that we're to blame for being mistreated. And that's a problem. So. And Fairy Magic says, I liked the no crosstalk. It meant no one was giving me their uninvited opinion while I was talking. Yeah. And that is the benefit of you don't have a whole bunch of people trying to jump on you and fix you, right? Like you're able to just kind of vent and they're holding space for you, which is that's almost kind of a sacred thing because it's not really done anywhere. But I think there's pros and cons to it for what it is. But I think for people to really gain that necessary insight into kind of the deeper inner work, it's just scratches the surface. Like there's this kind of stuff that needs to be spelled out. It's too hard. I just don't know if there's any way for a person to put these pieces together by themselves without some sort of map, at least of just explore these 12 things, hold on to what helps, let the rest go. But this is the pattern for so many people. It might be the pattern for you too, you know? Let's see here. Let me scroll down. Let's see here. Really? You know, I always wondered about that, Zachary. He says, there was this woman at my local Al-Anon group who kept trying to sell me stuff. She seemed strikingly narcissistic. I'm sorry, I'm so hot. I'm seriously still so hot. I have a tank top on underneath this, but then you guys would see my little flabby girly arms. And I don't know if that's gonna, if I can handle it. I don't know what's worse, being hot or you guys seeing my flabby little arms. Let's see here. Yeah, I'd always wondered, how do they control that kind of stuff? And what happens if you have a person who starts, because, you know, anybody can start or kind of host an AA or a Coda group or what have you. How do they kind of do quality assurance where they're making sure that that's not the case? I've been to many, many, many groups, and I've never had that come up, but I'm like, I'm sure that obviously it does. Like, it's got to. How do they find out, and how is that handled? Gigi says, be vulnerable or be overheated. No judgment here. I think I am. You guys are just gonna have to deal. Just hold on. You didn't know it was gonna be this kind of stream. Ugh. Okay. Whew. Oh my gosh. It is still, we're just going to get through it. We're just going to get through it tonight. Okay. Phoenix, that is a great question, says, Dana and everyone, do you think it's likely that somebody who is fresh out of a toxic relationship or situation can be attractive to a narcissist because of their vulnerability and weakness? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially the real, some crazy hair going on, the real predatory ones that intentionally like to erode somebody. So, you know, I'm just a really big fan of it's so important that you're able to get in tune with knowing when you're being treated in a way that's not okay with you. Like, that's such a big core part of healing is getting back in tune with that and realizing we don't have to know their intentions. We don't have to know for certain if they meant to hurt our feelings, if they meant to be rude, if they meant to be inappropriate, any of that. All you just need to know is, hey, is this okay with me or is it not okay with me? Because there's no such thing as a small deal. Like, there's no such thing as a petty issue. If it's an issue for you, it's an issue. So, you know, it's okay. So James says, you need a USB fan on your desk. I know I do. I'm roasting in here tonight. Hey, Lydia says, I am worried setting boundaries can have big consequences, only kind of with all the wrong people, frankly. And it can be a challenge setting boundaries can be a bad idea if the person is dangerous, if they've ever been intimidating, if they've ever been violent, if they've ever been aggressive towards you. Setting boundaries is not a strategy I would necessarily work. The only real boundary is going to be a physical one, to really get some distance from them, because it's just going to further enrage them. Because people like that, it's all about control. It's not about anything else. So, but with new people, I think so many of us struggle with setting boundaries with new people. If we've already experienced a lot of loss in our life with relationships ending, or, what have you, it can be this feeling of, I don't want another one to end. And so I'm scared to assert myself, because then what if I say something that upsets them and then they leave? And that can be really difficult. But I think if you realize that, sorry, I'm reading the chat and people are making fun of my arms. That if you, with the right people in your life and the right relationships, this setting boundaries and bringing your authentic self to the table, it's a necessary ingredient for relationships to grow. Because real relationships are based on realness, and our boundaries are, and it's our way of not only keeping ourselves safe, but it's a way of being more of who you are. Because you're being authentic. You're saying yes when you mean yes. You're saying no when you mean no. You're letting other people know, hey, this is okay with me. Hey, this isn't okay with me. It's so much more of a real dynamic that goes on. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll up. Lydia. Okay, I am not seeing the post, but somebody had said, now I really want to find it. That, hey, Lydia had said, and I'm not seeing it. Somebody had said that she had set a boundary and then the person had committed suicide. Okay, he killed himself after you rejected him, was what happened. That makes total sense that it would be incredibly anxiety inducing to try to set a boundary with somebody after an experience like that. However, I just want you to know that this person was already unstable. So if it hadn't had been that incident, it would have been something else, because that's a very extreme action to take from getting rejected. So it came down on your shoulders. It was the timing. You were there, but had it not been you, it would have been the next girl, or it would have been a job loss, or it would have been something else. And frankly, had you not rejected this person and had you gone out with them and they were unstable like that, there's a very solid chance they could have still ended up committing suicide. And there's also a chance that this could have wound up in a murder-suicide. So it's tough when somebody, when somebody ends their life, but that's such a, it's a personal decision. And it's heartbreaking. I think it's one of those things, like you can look back on those moments and really agonize over, what could I have done different? What could I have said different? What was going on? I had a patient once who was one, again, you're not supposed to have favorites, but I just really enjoyed her. And she was just such a neat young woman. had a lot of stuff going on with her. I'd worked with her for years, and I just, like I said, I always just really enjoyed her. She was very creative. She was, we just shared a lot. She shared a lot with me. I shouldn't say I shared a lot with her because I really, professional boundaries there, but like, I knew so much about her, and if I would have adopted her. Like, I just really, really enjoyed her. And, she came into my office one day, right when we were closing up. She needed something kind of last minute. I forget even now what it was. Came in there. She'd been suicidal earlier that week and seemed totally fine. We chatted for a little bit in my office. I stayed late. I got up and she said, I just want to say thank you. You've always listened to me. And then she left. She gave me a hug, which was unusual. And she was in a really good mood, which was unusual. And then she left, and then she jumped off a building and ended her life. And it's really hard when anybody, regardless of how well you do or don't know them, does something like that. So, I get it. But you rejecting somebody and saying, no, I'm not interested, it would have been a lot more difficult had you led him on and said, oh yes, I'm very interested in you, and then you really weren't. So yeah, I think that suicidal thinking and all of that, it's so such a common thing that I think so many people, survivors of abuse, really can struggle with. And I think for anybody that's out there that's thinking about suicide, I would just strongly encourage you to take it off the table. It's not, just please don't even make it an option, because it doesn't stop the pain. It just gives it to somebody else. There's suicide hotlines in almost every single country. Most of them are 24 hours a day. There is help out there. They can text you. They can chat with you. But it's such a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So hugs to you. Hugs to anybody that's struggling with this. And hey, Laura, hugs to you too. Please, no, please. I just can't stress this enough. You did the right thing by being authentic, and it's okay for you to reject another person. Your setting boundaries did not cause this person to end their life. They had other stuff going on. So it was not the cause of, it was these two events happened to occur close together, but this person was already on that tightrope, and it would have just been something else had it not been that. Thank you, James, for posting that. www.suicidepreventionlifeline, what is that? Is it .org? And the number is 1-800-273-8255. It's 1-800-273-8255. Okay, let's see. Silicone Turtle, what a name. This has two questions. One has to do with how can we feel safe in the world if we are not close to being narcissist free? I would say trying to carve out as much safety as you possibly can in little and big ways every single day. So like I'd mentioned before, getting into a routine can really help. It might help for you to have some sort of personal protection, like a can of mace, or these kinds of things. Carving time out for some sort of meditation, meditation or relaxation can help. Spending time doing something that brings you some degree of joy or satisfaction can help. So doing what you can with where you are is a big one. You can start focusing on the different feelings that are surfacing and kind of doing some more of this inner work if you're in a situation where you can't leave right now. Silicone Turtle says can we debunk some law of attraction beliefs when it comes to attracting narcissists? Yes, we absolutely can. I address a lot of this, and I still I think I need to make sure. I still need to put up that yikes on my website. I address a chunk of this in my latest book, The Narcissist Playbook, and about one of the ways that people tend to go wrong is when any of us, when we don't understand there is a spider above my head now. Yeah. Just keep going, dude. Just keep on keeping on. Yikes. Okay. Sorry. What a weird night tonight. Law of attraction. So when people don't understand, when we don't understand what we've gone through, we are going to be prone to linking up incorrect cause and effect. And we can do that in a wide number of ways. It's inevitable because we're looking for a reason as to what happened so we can, because our brain is wired to keep us safe. And so it's going to start making patterns, recognizing patterns that may or may not be there. And one really common way for people to do this is to fall into law of attraction stuff, thinking that they attracted this into their life. Yes, it can be very dangerous with very, very re-victimizing and very dangerous and incorrect thinking. And so there's many different ways that I see this go wrong. Well, just for a couple of them, people will say, oh, no, Dana, law of attraction to law, it's like gravity. It works whether or not you believe in it. And to that, I would say, no, that's not true. It's not just calling something a law doesn't make it a law. So just because it's called the law of attraction doesn't mean that it's a scientific law, because it's not. And the reason it's not is because scientific laws can be tested and retested within a certain degree of statistical significance that are reliable enough that, yes, this is a law. That is not the case with law of attraction kind of stuff. So like doesn't attract like all of the time. Like sometimes, you're in a really great mood, you notice, your energy's at a certain level, you seem to attract other things that are at that level, but sometimes that's not the case. So law of attraction it's a form of what's known as magical thinking. And a more, spiders going, a more common form of magical thinking that I think more people are perhaps familiar with is superstitious thinking. The thinking, well, if I wear my lucky hat and, my hockey team wins, then it's because of my lucky hat. And people do this stuff all the time, right? Baseball players especially are really superstitious. It's not. There's a difference between causation and correlation. So some of this stuff, can seem like, oh, it's harmless. It doesn't really matter, this, that, and the other. But it does, because where I see a lot of people go wrong is they start focusing on like, okay, well, if I raise my energy, then I'll start attracting different people and that'll keep me safe. And that's not the case, because there's predators out there in every place. And kind of these new agey, spiritual communities, these kinds of things, they have their own share of predatory people. And so what seriously just breaks me out into a cold sweat is when I start thinking about abuse victims that are going to these places and they're thinking, they're taught, okay, well, you set your intention and then you're going to attract this person. Because what happens is the next person that shows up, especially if that person matches what the intention that they were trying to set, then they think they immediately drop any and all healthy boundaries and they move full speed ahead because they think that the universe, that they ordered this person, that the universe delivered this person to them. And who are they to question it? Because if they start instilling doubt in it, it's going to change their energetic vibration and this relationship's going to fall apart. And I've seen a lot of times people get tangled up with a con artist or a sociopath, and they're completely confused because they think they're meeting Prince or Princess Charming. This person's an absolute nightmare. They don't understand how it happened. Because they're not learning about manipulation and all this other stuff, they're focusing on learning the wrong thing. And therefore, they're not going to be safe because they're not addressing the real issue. So it's confirmation bias. So Magic brings up a really great point as well. This is stuff's easy to fall into. We all do it. It's just being aware of it. So it can be a challenge to sift and sort out like kind of what's what. But confirmation bias is when we interpret any incoming information in a way that supports our existing belief. And confirmation bias is so insidious that this is one of the main reasons that scientists will do double-blind experiments, because they don't want to unintentionally use confirmation bias to support their hypothesis when they're testing out different things. So for example, law of attraction, let's say you set the intention, I really want $1 million, okay? And you're focused on $1 million, bringing this into your reality. You're working on raising your energetic vibration, staying positive, these kinds of things. And just developing this level of absolute certainty with it. But law of attraction will teach you any money that starts coming to you, it's proof that you're manifesting this, that you're causing this. And this is the core of magical thinking. So magical thinking basically dictates that our thinking, our unrelated thinking or actions have an impact on outside events. Just like if I have my magic baseball hat and I wear that, or my magic hat and my hockey team wins, thinking my hat caused my team to win. My hat did not cause the team to win. And we can prove this by, having the team play a number of times within statistical significance, me wearing the hat, me not wearing the hat, start isolating variables. That's what scientists do, right? They start isolating variables to figure out, okay, what's causing what here? So with law of attraction, with the confirmation bias, so anytime a person starts noticing money, you find $1 in your pocket, you find a nickel on the street, you get a refund check in the mail, it's not proof of anything. It's confirmation bias. So these things happen to all of us. We just don't notice it because we haven't activated that part of our brain, which is called the reticular activating system. It's not significant to us. So if something is significant to us, that part of our brain is clicked on. This is why you hear your name being called in a cocktail party, or your child's name, or this is why you notice people that drive the same make and model car as you, or of your child or your significant other, because it's significant to you. So there's a lot of, good things about law of attraction to a point, but then it just kind of completely falls apart and it becomes really dangerous because it's pseudoscience. And it can get real dangerous really fast. So let's see here. Yeah, and Silicone Turtle was saying, yeah, there's some people that are just really big into the law of attraction. And yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, I can see why people fall into it. For the longest time, I was a really big fan of Abraham Hicks. But when I started listening to enough of it, I was like, you know what? No, there's some jumps in logic here that don't add up. And I spent a significant amount of time combing through, why does this not add up? And this is where all this comes from. Like, this was me digging and digging and digging and really kind of passion it out, because I see this. I'm still in different law of attraction groups on Facebook and stuff. And I try to reach out to people because I see it almost every single day in those groups with, if somebody's, you're bringing the wrong tool to fix the wrong problem, and they're just going to keep going around that mountain, and they're going to keep getting confused. And then what tends to happen is eventually they just figure that they're cursed, that it's just inevitable. They can't stop it. They were meant to be abused. They were put on this earth to be abused, because what else can it be? Because they don't get it. So it's a challenge. This is what I was saying before. Like, a person, I just don't think that it's possible for one person to try to put all of these pieces together. I, by nature, am a very curious person. Sorry, I keep feeling spiders crawling on me because there's one crawling on the ceiling that I'm not going to kill. I'm just going to encourage him to keep walking. Sorry. Like, keeping my eye on him. I just wish he just keeps going in this circle or on the light up here. It's really unsettling. I was gonna say, I'm a very curious person, and I love doing deep dives into all kinds of random stuff like this. Like, that's a good Saturday night for me. Like, I just love doing this kind of stuff. But even with that, even with as much as I read and as curious as I am, and as, deep into stuff as I'm willing to go, there were still really major life-changing gaps in my knowledge. And it wasn't until I started my YouTube channel that I had the benefit of hearing from thousands of people that were able to point out my blind spots. So I guess I just like, it's too much for one person to put stuff together. Yeah. And then Truth Seeker says too, when you grow up being groomed, how can you possibly see the truth? Yeah, you can't. I mean, if you're lost in a paper bag, you obviously can't be the one to find your way out, or else you wouldn't have been in the paper bag to begin with, right? So it really needs, this is what I was saying, and it's not about somebody else kind of taking over your healing, but at least saying, here's a map. I don't know if it's been a while since I've been down all these roads, so they might look a little different. Here's the map. And then how much of this applies to you, I don't know, but here's at least a really solid starting point. Yeah, Omaluk says, yeah, Abraham Hicks sucked me in for a while too, but I saw the same problem. It's so funny. Earlier today, I was thinking I need to start getting, like, lifting weights and getting back in the gym and stuff. And then I distinctly had the thought, well, it's not like anybody's going to be seeing my arms on camera. And here I am, like 6 hours after that. That's so funny. Do I even want to get into this? conversation that's going on about this other YouTuber. I would encourage you guys to look up her name and look up the word scam behind it. And you can also check out her ex-husband. I don't know if he's, let me look. I don't know if he still has it. He had a blog trying to out. Oh, I don't remember what it was called. Hold on a second. He might have taken it down. I don't see it. So I will say it has been my experience with that one particular YouTuber, yeah, that she is a pathological liar. Everything she said, you listen to enough of the stuff and it's just, it's so grandiose and it's so completely delusional and none of it makes sense. And it's so over the top. And the reality of it doesn't match up with anything that she's saying. So, and you've got two of her ex-husbands coming forward saying more stuff and people that have lived, it's just, yeah. Yep, I agree. Yeah, Fairy Magic says, yeah, there's tons of stuff about her. Plus, you can get a vibe from listening to her anyway. Yeah, I agree. Just looking at pictures of her, I've never seen a picture where there's been like an authentic smile. She's got this look where she wants to kill someone on her face. I've never seen a look of just pure hatred on picture after picture after picture after picture. She looks evil. I don't know, which is unfortunate because some of her stuff is, the way she explains it's pretty good, but yikes, the rest of it's just problem, red flag city. Okay, let's see here. Let me, Silicone Turtle says, Dana, I'm leaving treatment on Saturday. I'm going to home and will be staying with a friend that does have some narcissistic traits. I'm a bit anxious, but I don't have many other options. What could you say? What could you say? You know, I guess here's the thing at the end of the day is there really isn't going to be any perfect person out there. So, and this is why it's such a challenge for us to kind of get our sea legs with what's okay with us and what's not okay with us, because it's not so black or white. There's a lot of shades of gray in all of this. And so it's kind of figuring out, okay, where is your line in the sand with some of this stuff? And realizing, okay, these are the different ways that you can keep yourself safe in this situation. So if you know, okay, you know what, my friend, this person does XYZ, that really just does not sit well with me. And because they've had this longstanding pattern of consistently doing XYZ, then I can anticipate that they're going to keep doing that. So from here on out, I'm going to take some sort of different action where I'm not so negatively impacted by that. So whatever that might mean for you, listening to music, shutting your door, it's just going to totally depend on how much you can kind of keep your own space, like what you need, I guess, for your own sanity with this kind of stuff. Let's see here. I agree with you. Omaluk says, I'm having the same problem with Byron Katie. I so want to go there, but it just feels too much like abuse is okay and just a part of your own ego or something. Yep. I agree. There's her approach. She has this kind of three-pronged approach, which I find very dangerous because of everything that you just said. Something like asking yourself, is something true? What else could it be? Like, could there be another meaning here? Without healthy context, a survivor of abuse could really spin that into justifying abuse and to thinking that it's their fault. And also it contributes to that that invalidation of their experience. It can just send them right back to square one. So that's the problem I have with it. There's, again, I'm with you. There's some things in her approach. If it was within, if the context of healthy boundaries was, maybe we should discuss this more in depth sometime with Byron Katie kind of stuff. If it was couched within a healthy context, I think it could be powerful, but without that, it's dangerous. Which is, again, so much, it's like the law of attraction stuff. Like there's some stuff in there that's really, really powerful. Understanding, your emotional scale, understanding the power of your reticular activating system, understanding the power of setting an intention, understanding the power of that your thoughts continue to just kind of snowball. So much stuff in there is really powerful up until the point that it's just dangerous. Just kind of knowing where that line is. So yeah, Omaluk says, yeah, I think she's very bright and very charismatic, but I get that evil vibe too. There was one picture, oh my gosh, it was so funny. It was her and her latest ex-husband. I think she's on number 4. I'm sure she's working on number 5, but like the last guy she divorced, there was this picture of them together, and it the look on her face was seriously just pure venom. And she looked beautiful. It was other than the look of pure hatred on her face, it was a really nice picture of them. And her community kept saying, oh, this is so beautiful. You look so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And I just was like, is really nobody else is seeing this look? It reminded me kind of like that picture of American Gothic, the old woman with the pitchfork, and she just got the scowl on her face. Like that's what it was. It was like, how, really? Like, nobody else sees this. Just very, very, but that's the thing, there's so much to this. I was very sad and very disenfranchised when I started really diving into a lot of this scam stuff that goes on in like the new age and spirituality community, because it's rampant. And my disenchantment, I think it might have started with Abraham Hicks when I started to really put the pieces together and just realize, oh my God, this is all a big act. This lady's totally full of it. How did I fall for this? This is just, her husband was a big Amway director. When I heard that, I was like, okay, what's going on? I just on and on and on. Like, her husband died of cancer, and when they hid his diagnosis for a very long time, and then when he died and they couldn't hide it anymore, then it came out, well, no, that he wanted to die like this because it would have been easier. It was easier on her. It was just, they just kept changing the story. So it was like, well, then it had nothing to do with this vibration. You know what I mean? Like, it just, mental gymnastics, frustrating. There's just a lot of people in new age kind of stuff that's, yeah. Ugh. I guess while we're at it, because it's already a weird night, I'm just going to mention, I have an issue. I have an issue with narcissistic abuse, other people that are in this community interviewing either HG or Sam. I feel like that's tacky and at best. And I think, it's really inappropriate. So yeah, I don't know. I've distanced myself just from a lot of it because it's, and it's just, this is a very real thing. Like abuse is a very real thing. And it's, it bothers me when people exploit that and that exploitation allows to go on. Let's see here. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Lydia says, I said Stockholm as a joke, but looking back, it was no joke. You bring up a really great point that's very significant. A lot of the time when I guess what I'm saying, notice these things. When we use kind of dark humor like that to describe a situation, or we think, boy, you know what? This new person in my life reminds me so much of this other problematic person. I just have found from personal experience that it's your brain hasn't hasn't learned all the information it needs to necessarily learn about manipulation and abuse. And so, but it's still trying to warn you. And so it's linking it up. For example, I've seen this time and time again, people all the time in the support group are like, oh, this person, I don't know if it's me or if it's them, but this person really reminds me of my abusive mother or my abusive ex. And they get all kinds of confused. But it's like, you know what? Your brain's not making those connections just out of nowhere. Like odds are you're seeing stuff either that you're not quite, you're denying or you're minimizing what you're seeing, or you're just, probably minimizing what you're seeing. Thanks, James. He says, here's a USB fan fund. You're a trooper, Dana. Dana, thank you. Thank you, James. I appreciate it. Yes, I need to figure out something soon here. Hooray says, who is exploiting narcissistic abuse? I'm just curious. I think anybody that entertains either Sam or HG. You would never see this. You would never, if our topic was on child molestation, you wouldn't see channels that are geared towards helping survivors interviewing child molesters. And if they did, then it's along the lines of Dr. Phil, and it's just to exploit people's pain and to get views. It's gross to me. So I don't know. I know different people help different people. You know what I mean? Like I get it. This is obviously like 100% my opinion on stuff. And it's, you got to do what works for you at the end of the day. I'm just saying, it's my 2 cents on it. Yeah, Truth Seeker was saying HG is some interesting information, but how can he be trusted? He's a self-proclaimed narcissist. So, not even that. Like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to reverse engineer all this, right? Like I could easily go create a fake channel tomorrow and be like, and create this whole fake persona of I'm a narcissist and this is what I do and this is how I go about destroying people and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, you just think about like the most selfish, hurtful things that you could possibly do. And then you just create stories around it. Like it's not, I don't know. People are just really gullible. And it's frustrating. And I guess even if he is 100% legit, which whatever, their level of insight's not there. Like that's the problem, right? Like that's why they are the way they are. So whatever insight they're giving you is going to be, it's only going to get you to a certain point. It's not going to get you to healing. It might give you some aha moments, but it's not going to get you to where all the way. Yeah, that's exactly what it is like, Sam. He says, yeah, it's like buying Winona's illness diagnosis on Girl Interrupted. It is. When I was a psychiatric nurse, okay, every now and again, we would have people come in that would pretend that they had generally schizophrenia. That was kind of the main one because they were trying to get on disability. That was the thing. So, or they were trying to get out of a crime. So they were trying to get, basically, they were legally insane. And it was so amusing because these people would come in and they would tell you everything that they thought. They would put on a show and they would pretend to have schizophrenia. If you've ever worked with people with schizophrenia, you know how there's a term, okay, you know how a person acts when they actually have something versus a person who's pretending to have something, or when a person flat out doesn't have something and they have somewhat different kind of but similar symptoms. But it was seriously comical, and we would let it go on. We would just let them keep going, and we would just take it so seriously and ask them more questions and all kinds of stuff. And and we would laugh and laugh and laugh when they would leave. Because it was all they thought they were so clever and it was all this big game. Well, it was disability, getting out of consequences, or getting medication they could go sell on the street. That's what it's about. And it's just what I see. Yeah, Fairy Magic says if people pretend to have schizophrenia to get on disability, yep. Generally, it does not work because if you, like I said, what people think schizophrenia is like versus what it's actually like are two very different things. Just like what people think sociopaths and narcissists are like and what they are actually like are two very different things. And, you see it when I've worked with hundreds of patients that have been mentally ill and personality disordered over the years. And I can tell the difference between somebody putting on a show and somebody being the real deal. Kevin says being declared insane can result in a longer incarceration. Yes, but generally, I guess it depends on what kind of crime. At least here in Michigan, you're generally on probation and you have to, again, depending, you're doing time in a psychiatric hospital. So very different than doing time in prison. And your probation would be checking in with us, is where I used to work. So we had a lot of court appointed people there that had to be there every other week or. Okay, let's see. Sergio, trying to get my attention here. What's going on? I'm missing all kinds of stuff. Yeah, Kevin says, I've personally witnessed prisoners pretending to be mentally ill. It never works. Yeah, it's not. It's just comical. It's like a little kid trying to pretend to be telling you the truth or pretending to be sick. That's probably a better example. It's like a little kid pretending to be sick, thinking that they're totally snowing you. Let's see here. Where was I? Sorry. Oh, what a weird night. Thank you guys so much for bearing with me here. Oh, Ricky. Okay. Ricky asks, are narcissists known for their outlandish stories? Yeah, a lot of them have, some of them can be just completely delusional, and some of them can have like a kernel of truth, but they just way over elaborate on things that happened. Some of them lie just because it works. Sort of like a lot of scammers will say that they're military because people tend to, at least here in the United States, tend to trust military members. And so that's why they pretend that they're military, or they might claim that they're, super successful in order to get you to, well, as for some people they're attracted to money, but then other people, so if they start asking you to borrow money, you're thinking, oh, they're good for it because they keep telling you that they've got money when they don't. Or it might be some just really grandiose, over the top story. We were talking about somebody earlier tonight. Oh, this person, I mean, it just goes on and on. I was born in lived in a satanic cult, but nobody knew that they were missing. And then later was abducted by aliens. And then they're also the reincarnation of Cleopatra and a bunch of other people. And they're psychic and clairvoyant, and they're this, and then they're that. And they're just this really special and unique being. They can channel entities from outer space. They can do all these kinds of things, on and on. So yeah, there's a range. There's a range there for sure. But anywhere along that range, it's a problem. I remember I have a former family member who was the first narcissist I ever knew. That was he was the reason I actually learned that term. And I was pretty young, like 12, 13. And I just remember thinking, like, what is with this guy? This is so nuts. He was just a chronic liar, but he was so charismatic and he was so entertaining. And I remember talking to my other family and just being like, he values a good story over the truth. I remember just thinking that was so weird because facts did not get in his way. And nobody really seemed to care because they just liked to his stories. He was an entertaining guy, but my God. Let's see. Okay, let me scroll up here. Sergio, okay, says he just got out of a really bad narcissistic relationship today that truly hurt him, and he's very hurt from it. Well, we are glad you are here, Sergio, and I think our hearts go out to you. It's those first couple of days are really rough. So Sergio says, how do I start to heal from it? I'm very lost. I would say for the time being, the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is to really triple up on your self-care. I would treat it like you have the emotional flu. So if you can just kind of hunker down, if you can take a day off or some time off work, seriously, allow yourself tomato soup and kind of camping out, watching some movies, and just really taking it easy on yourself, trying to get rid of, if you can leverage any responsibilities, any major decisions, any stress, now would be the time to do it. And so like I said, tripling up on your self-care at a minimum for the next month, but for sure for the next week, because this is a big puzzle to solve, and it's not going to happen all at once. And I can just tell you, and I think other people here would agree, you will look back on this time, because right now the emotions are so intense and they're so painful. The future you is not going to look back on this time and think, boy, I really wish I would have stressed myself out more. I really wish I would have worried about things more. That the one thing that's for certain is that, like, you're not going to wish that you would have been harder on yourself during this time. You will, however, wish that you would have been extra good to yourself this time. So all of this hurt that you're feeling, this will soften with time. This pain's not always going to be this intense. It does, kind of lessen with time and with support and these kinds of things. But right now it's painful, and it's trying to just get through it in the most compassionate way you possibly can. And I would encourage you to write down a list of all of the reasons why this relationship is not healthy for you, and keep that list handy. Because what happens is, a lot of times these people like to do this on again, off again kind of thing, because they like seeing their partners twist in the wind, beg for them to come back, beg for forgiveness, cry, plead, do all kinds of stuff, yell, scream. If they can get any type of emotional reaction out of somebody, they feed off of that. And so, and this can really push a person. So it's this kind of stuff. I would just encourage you to get really clear with yourself about why this was not a healthy relationship for you. If you find yourself missing them, and I would block, if you can, block their number, block all of their social media, possibly stay off social media so you're not even tempted to go on there, or go to different social media. If they're on Facebook or what have you, then start spending some time on YouTube, or binging on Netflix, doing stuff that you're not going to come across them. Does that make sense? And then reading that letter to yourself of like, why this, and I do it in bullet points, so it's easy to scan all at once. Yeah, that's good. Ricky says, yeah, I find watching your favorite comic helps ease the pain. Yes, I watched a lot of Dave Chappelle back in the day. That guy never gets old. He's so funny. Yeah. And Sergio says, I truly knew she was a narcissist, but I tried to heal her, and that's what's scary, is she will come back. Okay. And if this is a concern of yours too, it can be helpful right now to, I guess it depends on how she contacts you, but to either go ahead and set up all of her emails to go directly to spam, so you don't even have to see it, and then have your spam folder set to where it just deletes automatically every so often. Or set up a brand new email, set up a brand new social media profile that you use, that you don't give anybody any pictures, you don't share that with anybody. So that way you're not having to worry about her contacting you with a fake profile, or having her friends contact you, or any of that kind of stuff, because she's not going to know your new name. But yeah, these people, and just reminding yourself too, like, when they keep coming back, it's not about love, it's about control. It's a game. It's a sick, pathological, immature game. James asks Dana, what's your favorite Dave Chappelle episode? Uh, the one with Prince. Well, any Rick James story was hilarious. And then and Charlie Murphy in general is hilarious. And then his Prince story about how they played basketball, like this crazy night where they end up playing basketball. It was what, like blouses against skins or something. And then Prince made them all pancakes. Oh man. So funny. So funny. There, the show, you guys, seriously, it's so great. Is it on? It might be on Netflix. I forget. What We Do in the Shadows. Go. You can search on YouTube and you can see the premiere for it, or the trailer for it. It's hilarious. That's another funny thing. Right? James says, yeah, what, you and your crew versus me and the revolution? Yes. Uh, oh, I think you're right. Kevin, you're right. He says, I think The Shadows is FX. Yeah, you're right. There's a movie and then there's the TV show. And they're both, I really didn't think the TV show could match the movie because the movie is so funny, but it does. They really did a great job. Okay, Omaluk, in all fairness, I will say Dave Chappelle's humor is maybe not for everybody. So just be forewarned. But he just has the best kind of deadpan delivery with stuff, and just kind of, I don't know, his comic timing is what's so great. Yeah, Jennifer says, yeah, it's sad that Dave Chappelle went into hiding there for a while. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if the pressure of it all um, just kind of became too much, or what. Yeah, Kevin says, yeah, Dave's doing live stand up again. Yeah, I love that guy. Uh, Let me scroll up here. I think we are going to be over on time again. Let's see. Okay, there's the one. Okay. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm going to say your Lockhart is the last name. I will be curious to know how to pronounce the first name. Okay, so let me scroll up here and then we'll go into our meditation for tonight here. Scrolling. Okay, my question is that my brother is in trouble with my narcissistic family. They are plotting things behind his back and he does not know. Me and my brother had big problems in the past, but I don't know if he still likes me or not. So I don't know how to warn him. What kind of stuff are we talking about? We fought way back when, but we've not interacted or actually spoken ever since. So I don't know how he feels now. Okay, your name is pronounced Xiao Yu. Is that correct? Xiao Yu. I guess it depends. Like what kind of trouble are we talking here? And is it um, kind of natural consequences to his actions, or is it malicious, hurtful behavior? Oh, okay. Sam says, I read the questions yesterday. It's something really huge. Uh, Xiao Yu says, yeah, it sounds odd. Let's see, if you're talking about your name doesn't sound odd at all. It's actually sounds beautiful. It's just, the letters are pronounced differently. There's a person here from Ireland whose name is pronounced Siobhan, but it's spelled like Saboan. So it's the pronunciation and the spelling is very different for us. Okay, so with that said, okay, so if there's a situation going on, there's kind of malicious intent going on, I would try to warn the person because he might not listen to you because there's that tension there. I think, you know what I would do? I would create a fake email account with the guy's name so he doesn't think it's you. So just keeping it as anonymous as possible and give just general details, and then just never ever say anything and don't let on. Because if your whole family is this kind of way, then this is just, these are not safe people then, if they're malicious and dangerous and destructive like this. So nobody can know that you're saying anything, or else you'd be potentially putting yourself in harm's way. Um, Mike has fallen down a hole in YouTube. Welcome, Mike. That's hilarious. Uh, um, I think Jack was saying, well, how'd you end up here if you weren't looking for resources on narcissistic abuse? I think people just, I don't know. YouTube's a weird place. There's holes. There's black holes that man, I have wound up in some very strange places on YouTube in the middle of the night. So you never know. Ha, I didn't even connect that. That's hilarious. Kevin, oh my gosh. I'm so glad because I did not even see that. That's good. I have to give credit to Mike for that. That's clever. uh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So Xiao Yu, right? Xiao Yu says, okay, Dana, it's serious stuff. Like they're telling him how to live his life, stuff like that. If it's stuff like that, I guess my mind went to like an even like a really dark place with it. But if they're kind of micromanaging him and this kind of stuff, then maybe you could. How much of an age difference is there? Is he still living at home? Are you both still living at home? Okay, so I'm going to wait for that response, and then I'm going to answer Deku's question real quick, who says, is it normal for an abused person to develop narcissistic tendencies? Yes, it is. And So then, I'm sorry, I'm not smiling at what you were saying. I'm smiling at what's going on in the chat. Um, there is a term out there called fleas, and fleas are basically kind of like, you lay down with dogs, you get fleas, kind of a thing. So oftentimes, when we're around a lot of dysfunction, you're going to pick up all kinds of different coping mechanisms to kind of get through, to navigate these different situations. And a lot of this stuff, we're not even consciously aware that we've learned this way of kind of being in this dysfunction. So that's part of it. But then also part of it's with trauma. When a person is traumatized, they can become very reactive, and can feel just kind of like a live wire. And when a person's in a lot of pain, physical pain or emotional pain, it preoccupies their thoughts. And so this can cause them to be very self-centered, self-absorbed, not in like a pathological personality kind of way, but from an unhealed trauma kind of way. Sort of like if you drop a hammer on your foot, that's going to take all of your attention, and that's what you're going to be focused on. And that's probably what you're going to be talking about for like the next day or so, because it's all you can think about. So trauma is kind of the same way. It's very difficult for a person to, it just kind of takes up all your bandwidth, I guess, basically. And there's a lot of negative personality changes that people tend to notice after abuse, because they're angry. There's, justifiably so. There's a lot of appropriate anger there. There's rage, there's hurt. And if a person, and most people, are not aware of a trauma or trauma response, or that they even experienced abuse. And so that the way that they're responding is completely out of character for them. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying for them. So then they start fearing, oh my gosh, what if I am the problem? What if I am the narcissist? Because look at me. I'm acting like an unhinged lunatic. I'm stalking my ex online. I'm obsessing about them. I'm so angry. I feel like I could kill them. You're just not in your right mind. A lot of that's very normal stuff after abuse. So I would encourage you to read about trauma bonds. I would encourage you to read about complex PTSD. Let's see, what else? What else could you guys have in mind for Deku? Yeah, and Deku says, yeah, and they don't even realize that they're doing it. He says, I spend a lot of time obsessing over the ways that they hurt me. Here's how I look at it, because a lot of abusers, you're right, like their behavior is, I shouldn't even say a lot of them, all of them, their behavior is due to their pathological mindset. And even though it feels intensely personal because we're on the receiving end of it, it's not. This is how they go through life. We just happened to get the brunt of that storm. But if it hadn't been you, it would have been somebody else. And it will be somebody else. And it just keeps going, because that's just how they are. It's not personal. It's sort of like if a person with Alzheimer's was living with you and they left the stove on and the house caught on fire. It's not personal. If they forget your name, it's not personal. If they start yelling at you and they're confused because they think you're a stranger in their house, it's not personal. It's not you. It's not you. It's them. There's something obviously with the person with Alzheimer's, brain, plaque in their brain, the tangles in their brain. There's stuff that's brain abnormalities with them. With abusers, it's similar stuff going on. It's personality stuff. It's not you. And I think sometimes understanding it, looking at it from that angle of, we got tangled up with a really problematic person, and it was really confusing. And we didn't see a lot of this stuff clearly at all. We didn't see any of this stuff clearly at all at the time, but now we are. And it's, it's not you. Once you really do see it clearly, it's a lot easier to just kind of detach and walk away. Yep, that's what they do. Deku says they really like to make me upset and then blame me for being upset. And then they give a sly little smile. Yep. And Truth Seeker says sadists. Yep. This show that I was telling you guys about earlier, the What We Do in the Shadows, one of the things about it that's so appropriate, I think, to our stuff. So the whole concept of the show is this kind of coven of vampires. It's a comedy. They all live in this house, and it's like the real world. So it's this reality show with all of these different vampires, and they're all different ages from, all over the world. And in the TV show, there's one vampire who is an energy vampire. And I forget the guy's name. He's like an accountant or something. And he says, he's like, yes, it's like I feed off of people's energy, and I either try to bore them to death or I annoy them. And so then there's this scene of him just sharpening pencils in the office, and everybody's just getting annoyed with him when he's like, and giving this like sneaky little look. And then periodically he'll look over at the camera and just go, because he's feeding off of people. It's so right on. That's exactly what they do. It's the result of, not on the TV show, in everyday life, it's the result of a really unhealthy ego that doesn't know, that learned a long time ago that this is the way it feels. This person's able to feel significant. And it's, by destroying other people and just getting attention in all kinds of the wrong ways. So, yeah. Yeah, Truth Seeker says, yeah, that smirk sends chills through my system. Yep. And they'll do that. And then they'll play stupid. And then we keep falling for it because it's hard to believe that a person would want to exert that level of energy on a regular basis. Like, why can't you just be cool and we can hang out? Like, why does it have to be this? But they can't, because that's not what they do. That's their limitation. Right. Well, that's the difference. Yeah, Jennifer says, yeah, well, with personality disorders, it's not really a chemical reaction in the brain. It has to do with their personalities. Yeah. They're just a part of them that just kind of didn't develop properly. And they've got all of these problematic behaviors instead. And that's just where they are. And it's tragic on every single level for everybody that they impact, and including them. Like, they're ruining their own life and don't even realize it. Yeah. People are talking about gray rock and stuff. Deku says, well, how do I respond? Just don't get upset. It's hard not to. Yep. That's exactly what you do. You pretend like you are so incredibly unbothered and that you're over it. Like, just in total general indifference. If this was somebody that you dated and they're trying to get a reaction out of you, you block their phone number, you don't engage with them. If you see them out in public, and you anticipate, that's the key, because you're saying this is so hard to do. Yes, it is. Anticipating and then practicing is going to help with that. So if you could normally go, I don't know, you go out to the bar every Friday night, and so does this other person, anticipating that you're going to run into them. Let's say, I don't even know who this person, let's just say it's an ex-girlfriend, okay? That she's going to try to make you jealous, that she's going to be talking about another boy, that she's going to have another guy there, that she's going to, say that she's got to talk to you, or that she's just diagnosed with cancer, or that's something, some sort of crisis to get your attention. Just seeing, oh, it's all game. Like person is nothing but smoke and mirrors, and you just got to detach. She might start hanging on guys at the bar to try to make you jealous. These kinds of things. Don't feed into it. Just realize, act like it's totally no big thing. If she talks about, oh, I'm so, the breakup is so hard, and I hope that you're doing okay, and blah, blah, blah. Just saying, you know what? It was a long time in coming. And I'm really glad that you ended things. And then making some sort of joke, like, if she's like, I really hope we can be friends, and you just mean so much to me. Seriously, just going along with it. Oh yeah, totally. Like, yeah, we should never try dating again. And just keep taking the wind out of her sails. Because trying to set boundaries with her and saying, you know what? No, I don't need that. With friends like you, da, 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 da. You're giving her a reaction. You just got to act like you just don't care, that you were over her months ago. And she's a non-issue, totally non-issue in your life. So, does that make sense? Shall you? Talking about our brother and stuff. Okay, so I guess depending on like your dynamic with him, if you can kind of reopen communication with them, I really, if you were going to go directly into warning him, I would do it from a fake email. That will come back to bite you. Because once he finds out, or once it really happens, he's going to say, yeah, well, you know what, Xiao, you told me. And he's going to, because that's what people do when they get upset. And even if he doesn't mean it, even if he's not trying to get you in trouble, it's going to come out. And then your life's going to be living hell too. So I would just stay as anonymous as possible. And then try to support your brother if they do end up really kind of putting him over a barrel, and brainstorm. I know university in China is very different, and it's very competitive, and it's there's so much more on the line over there than there is over here. So I know that I can't even begin to comprehend the level of severity of the situation. But I guess my question too would be, would there be an alternative if your parents were to cut him off financially? Is student loans, like, what kind of financial options would he have? Okay, good deal. Yeah, Deku's saying, yeah, you make perfect sense. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're welcome. It's hard, but once you get a few of those little victories under your belt and you see it for the games that it is, it makes it a lot easier. And it's okay. It's okay to be hurt. These things are freaking painful, like unlike anything else. Just don't show it in front of the other person. You can, be upset, lick your wounds all the way home, but in front of that person, cool, calm, collected, you didn't even notice. Like you didn't even notice that they were mistreating you. You didn't even notice that they weren't talking to you. Like none of that. You just didn't even notice. Pebble in your shoe. So, okay, we are way over. We are way over in time. Okay. Oh, Xiao Yu says no, she lives in the US right now. Does he live in China? if he's here in the US and if he's in college, then not necessarily a deal ender. Then he can do, I mean, not that it's ideal to do student loans, but at least it's an option. I think sometimes just kind of brainstorming options as far as like, well, you know, like what could you do could help. So, okay. So with that said, we are way over. I apologize. You guys, thank you for thank you for the night. It's been a wild ride. Oh my gosh, and that spider's still there. So with that said, let's do our guided meditation thing, and then we'll call it a night. And then I will see you guys next week, next Tuesday, over on Angie's channel. So, and then live stream Wednesday, as always. So you guys take some time to get comfortable, whatever that might mean, in a chair or a bed or wherever is a comfortable spot for you. Let's just take some time to get centered, kind of reconnect with yourself and reconnect at this present moment. Let's take a series of 5 deep breaths in through your nose. And then out through your mouth. Becoming fully present in this moment. Releasing any stress or anxiety you might have about the future. Any pain or past hurts. Being fully present in this moment. Bringing your attention to the temperature in the room, the sounds around you, the feel of the fabric under you. Turning your attention inward till you can feel your heartbeat. Connecting with all of your different senses. Becoming present in your body. And bringing your attention up to the top of your forehead. Allowing these muscles to easily and effortlessly relax. Releasing any tension or stress that you might be storing around your forehead, your eyebrows, your eyes, your cheeks and your jaw. Allowing your jaw and your mouth to fall open as your tongue falls from the roof of your mouth. feeling the heaviness of your face as you allow yourself to relax. Relaxing your neck and your shoulders. Allowing your arms to become heavy and to drop down. Allowing your chest to open and expand as each breath travels deeper, deeper, deeper down. Allowing your chest to easily and effortlessly rise and fall. Relaxing your stomach. Noticing if you find yourself clenching any certain muscles, or if you're storing any pain or tension in any different areas of your body. And as we work our way down, sending breaths to those areas. Relaxing your hips. Allowing your legs to fall into whatever position is the most comfortable for you. Relaxing your thighs and your knees, your calves, your feet, your toes. Allowing your legs to become heavy with each passing breath. Allowing yourself to become completely relaxed. Knowing that at this time you are safe. You are here in this present moment. That there is a lot that is good and right with you and with this present moment. Taking a few breaths in, noticing the change in your body, that your chest is able to expand. These breaths are traveling deeper down into the bases of your lungs, and that you've allowed your stomach area to loosen and unwind. Noticing the difference that you feel. And taking a few moments to turn inward and to tune in to your heart beating. Let's take a moment to visualize energy surrounding your chest area, your heart area. Noticing how it might feel. It might feel like you have a stone or a brick in your chest. It might feel a lot more open than that. It might feel like a ball of beautiful, radiant light. Or perhaps it might feel like a ball of beautiful, radiant light that's covered in mud. And that light's peeking out through the cracks. So let's visualize reconnecting with that light, no matter how dim or bright it might be. Finding that light in your heart center. And over the next series of breaths, visualizing that light growing bigger, stronger, Realizing that this light connects you to everything that is good and right within yourself and everything that is good and right within the world. That there is so much that is good and right about you, and there is so much that is good and right about the world. Visualizing this light continue to grow larger and larger. Size of a softball, volleyball, basketball. Realizing that you are safe and it's okay to reconnect to things that are good and right. Realizing that you have so many of the answers that you seek deep within you, that you know deep down when you are being treated in a way that's not okay with you and when you are being treated in a way that is okay with you. You know what is nourishing for you and what is draining for you. And every single moment of every single day, you're becoming more and more in tune with this. This is powerful. It's a big step in healing, reconnecting to your authentic self. So let's take a moment. Just send some light and love to some of the different people in the chat that are having a hard time tonight. Those that are fresh out of painful relationships, those that have been out for a while and that are struggling. Just either sending thoughts and prayers or light and love or good wishes to fellow travelers on this road, whatever resonates most with you. Just letting them know that they are not alone. And perhaps giving them a virtual hug and encouraging them just to keep walking. This road to healing can be a long one, but it doesn't have to be lonely. And it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. It can be a big old party going down the road. So when you're ready, come on back and open your eyes. So thank you guys so much for being here. And I just wanted to say I shouldn't have said half the stuff I said about other YouTubers. That was really ugly of me and unnecessary. So please forget that I said that. You guys focus on what is helpful to you and let the rest go. That includes anything that I have to say or anything anybody else has to say. People pick up all kinds of puzzle pieces in the strangest of places. So you gotta find what's right for you. It's your path. So with that said, lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care, and I will see you guys next week. Okay. Good night.